1. I worked in gaming retail on and off for about 8 years, and I have so many stories. My customer service was always ranked in the top 10 in whichever position and district I happened to be working in. And I only say that because I do not take any nonsense from customers, so my performance was often the only reason why I kept my job after all was said and done. Confirmed by all of the managers and district leaders that I've worked with. There's countless, "Yes, I am smiling at you, but I'm only being nice because I'm paid to" stories. Even more, "Actually, female, you're wrong," when I was actually correct stories, but I've got a few good gems that I love to share. I worked in over a dozen gaming retail locations across a 50-mile radius, and to be clear, I absolutely love all the friends I've made during this experience, even with all of the threats, sexual harassment, stalking, and, of course, Karens. I'd do it all again. On to my earliest story. I first worked in a mall, and y'all know that mall security will do absolutely nothing for you unless you hysterically sob or are legitimately threatened with a weapon the person has in their hands. Or maybe that was just that one place they sucked. I don't know. I was often working alone in a very small store, and it was slow. Sometimes other mall workers that I befriended would come to hang out in the breaks, but otherwise the only people in the store were me and customers. All of the stores in the area got alerted to a rash of thefts that involved someone distracting one coworker with questions, while the other worker was too busy ringing up the line of customers. Apparently, these friends did not scope out my store beforehand because there was no other worker and there was no line for my entire shift. It was within an hour of closing, so I pull out a box from the back room to prepare for a new game launch the next day. My store had a locked drawer in the front for them. We did not have the hours to stay more than 30 minutes after closing, so I almost kinda didn't have the choice but to do this while the store was still open. I was used to this and took every precaution, keeping everything hidden away if a customer came in, not letting the box leave my sight, etc. This box must have looked like the holy grail to this group of thieves because right after I sliced it open, the first one walked in. He was very charismatic, smiling while he spoke, asked me a bunch of questions and my opinion on things. Another guy walked in a few minutes later and immediately went to an area behind me, where he'd have a straight line into the area behind the counter, where my box was. I greeted him as he entered, and I like to believe that this is when they both started to hesitate and think, "Oh God, she noticed us." Who knows? But I'm the main character in this story, and I'm going to say that's what happened, because they were apparently desperate. First guy suddenly said he was looking for a specific item for his girlfriend, and surely by pure coincidence, that item was up in a high area that was not near my box. I walk to the background and keep the door open, 100% line of sight on my box behind the counter, still, while I grab the ladder to grab this man's item from up above. He's on my heels the entire time, trying to chat me up, and I'm being polite as I climb the ladder. The moment I turn my head away to look at what I'm reaching for, I hear those hard and heavy footsteps behind me, and honestly, my first thought was that someone was about to attack me, but no, it was guy number 2, and I whipped my head around at the sound and saw him with a handful of copies of this, hitherto unreleased, game in his filthy, stealing hands. I immediately start screaming, "Are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious? Put that shit back right now! Pointing at the box. As he does, I'm screeching from atop my high ground on top of the ladder, so I continue with, "Now get the fuck out of my store!" Pointing at the door. Exit guy number 2. All the while, the charismatic first guy is politely smiling up at me, seemingly unfazed by this interaction. And as demon horns sprout from my forehead, I yell, "You too!" To which he tries to sputter that he doesn't know the guy, he just wants to buy the thing. And in my increasingly feral voice, I tell him, "I don't give a shit, I'm not stupid, get out!" And he proceeds to leave without a word. I alert the local stores that they try to hit my store. I double-check to make sure all of the copies are there, they are, alert my manager of what just happened, and go along with closing everything up. My favorite part of this story is that, unbeknownst to me, the security camera caught absolutely everything, including the audio. I came back a few days later for my next shift, and was commended by my team for how I reacted, and was told the entire district had received the video of my very threatening, as a 5'4" teenager, actions. I was concerned at first because I was a new promotion, but absolutely everyone up top was laughing hysterically. Needless to say, I believe that was my retail origin story. I had become known amongst colleagues as the chick who screamed and cursed 2 thieves out of my store with 0 merchandise alone. This set the tone for the rest of my gaming retail career, and I would not have it any other way. 2. Even though I really just wanted to bop to my music, I also like helping people, especially people who don't understand Funko or Lego or comics. It's something I've always been good at. Even some teachers in high school would ask around Christmas time for insights on WTF their kids were asking for. And it wasn't teacher's pet because they weren't my teachers, but others in the school who my teachers would talk to, so yeah, just some context first. Now, this was last year on a Saturday around 2 p.m., as I had just left work after having an early morning shift and it was close to Christmas time. As I stood in the Funko aisle, this lady looked desperately confused. She had her kid telling her different things and she had no clue. I asked if she wanted help and helped her out, then left. I went back to assisting some other parents in the Lego department when I heard that of a Karen. "Excuse me." I knew she was talking to me because there was no one around. Hello? I need help right now." "I don't work here, lady, and I don't appreciate being spoken to as if I'm dumb. I would never speak to you or anyone like this." Sorry." She now attempts to be nicer, but she couldn't hold it in for long. And I helped because I knew I'd probably enjoy the future outcome, and I did. "I was looking for such and such a figure. It was a Harry Potter variant, and I remember it was a $20 figure." That's gonna probably be $20 since it's an exclusive. There is another non-exclusive one, and I show her, but yeah. "No, I wanted to know the price of this one here." $20. That's how much it costs. "No, I want the store's price, not yours. I don't want to buy your shit." I finally understood and laughed out loud. At this point, a store employee made it over, and she gave me the nod to sneak out of Karen's tantrum. I couldn't escape, though, because when the lady told her the store's price and pointed to the tag, she was fuming like smog. Inwardly, she's just thinking I'm entitled, I am privileged. Karen says to the employee, who was the manager, No, this is his price tag. This employee wanted to sell me his shit like it's a shitty pawn shop or something." The manager asks me, "What's your take?" I'm trying not to laugh. "No, I assisted some people helping as I generally like to help people," and then she approached. I told her the price and differences between figures, and she thought I was trying to sell her this figure, but I'm not. I don't really know Gandalf. He wasn't in Harry Potter. The figure was Harry Potter as a variant. I know Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, not Harry Potter. Just some extra fun. Karen glared at me like she wanted to Thanos dust me. Do you have the figure on you? May I search your bag?" I was fine with that. Karen entered with, "No, he's right there," pointing to the figure on the shelf. "Karen, he is correct, as I overheard you shouting at him. This is the store price, not his. And another thing, people are just trying to be nice and help." I'm happily laughing quietly at this point. She apologizes to the manager, not to me, but I don't care because the best is yet to come. The Karen grabs the figure and walks away. The manager pulls me aside, and we quickly talk. "I see you come in here a lot and help folks. We all really appreciate it. A lot of us don't even know this stuff, but I want to know why interact with her. For what reason?" I explained that this wasn't the first time I had run into Karen, as she and I both frequent that strip mall where the store is located. I have witnessed her shit-talk employees here at basically every other store in the area. I also explain I take pacifist values, but to the point that I hate bullies. When I now see Karens, my Grinch smile takes over. I went to the grocer to possibly have another encounter of the Karen kind. I was ready for a blow-up. How dare you speak to your elders this way? I will clarify, she's in no way an elder. To be honest, she looked to be late 20s, early 30s, and I'm in my early 20s. I didn't see her, but she did see me. She followed me into the dollar store, to which she then proceeded to follow me saying, "Funko liar," over and over again. I was snickering through the whole store. Every time I crossed into another aisle, she hid around the corner and kept saying, "Funko liar, liar, liar." And at this point, people are taking notice, and my shoulders are bouncing. Karen sees this and realizes something. She had spent 45 minutes following me around calling me a Funko liar. Everyone, including the employees she had belittled before, could see her. I had noticed and was laughing at it all. She pops off. I will admit the Harry Potter comment was a tad rude, but this is where it came together. The manager of the dollar store walked over to her after noticing her and said, "Miss, you are the one who belittled my employees time and time again, and now you yell at a customer? You need to leave now." The wild Karen saw that I was giggling like a schoolchild and stormed out. I've never seen her again. The manager at the dollar store was a fluke. I guess she would chew me out in the grocer, but never in a million billion years would I have guessed this event. The manager at the dollar store then turned her attention to me, the giggling toddler. "Are you okay? Seems like a new reaction to a bitch screaming match." I quickly explained what had went down, and the dollar store staff and manager were rolling. Apparently, they have been meaning to ban her for a bit, but she hadn't come in. I still go there, see the staff, and she hasn't been back. And like I get upset sometimes over mispronunciations of characters and mix-ups. But all my life, I wish I stood up to all Karens. She just caught me at a fuck everything moment. Well, I know I could have handled it better. I knew that if she didn't let out her Karen on me, it would just be someone else. And I know how unpleasant the holidays can be for store workers. It kinda all just came together. Am I an asshole? Probably. I'll take that with pride. I'm an asshole to Karens, and I'll stride into the sunset as one. 3. Many moons ago, while in college, I worked at a very busy store in Toronto, Canada. The name of the store would lead you to believe that we sold tires, which we did, but we also sold tools, seasonal stuff, houseware, sporting goods, etc. No, not the Mart of Walls, but similar and without the clothing or food. I worked in the tools section, which I loved. I used to work in construction, so working with tools was more like getting paid to play with toys for me. So it was a very busy day, and I had a line of customers waiting for my help. Some wanted tools from locked display cases, some wanted advice, some wanted to know where to find something. You get the idea. My best guess was the line was about 30 minutes long, with most people waiting patiently. And her very busy, I'm important and oblivious lady. She breezes past the line, interrupts the exchange I'm having with the customer, and reading from a slip of paper spouts off, "Do you have," and then she spews a random series of letters and numbers. I pause to think about what it might be and say, "I'm sorry, but I don't know offhand what that might be. As you can see," pointing to the line, "there are a lot of people waiting. I will get to you just as soon as I can." Cue huffing, eye-rolling, and to my surprise, stomping to the end of the line. She actually did wait for her turn, which also surprised me. So 30 minutes later, it's her turn, and she reads loudly the seemingly random series of letters and numbers again. I'm a pretty visual person, so hearing the code didn't make any sense to me. I asked, "Could I see your piece of paper?" She hands over the paper, and once I saw the part number, I immediately recognized it as being a part that we did not stock. Oops. "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't stock that part." Part of me was quite pleased to be able to answer her question. She didn't share my happy vibe. I don't remember exactly what she said to me, but it seemed to take a long time for her to say, I do seem to remember several references to my lack of usefulness, aspirations being cast upon the store, several laudatory comments as to the value of her time and how I had callously disregarded her overall importance by wasting said time. I do believe that she felt that making her speech at full volume would increase the impact and my overall understanding of her position. Insert stomping off in a rage, never to be seen again. Now, in all fairness to her, I can see that it would have been a frustrating situation. If I had looked at the slip of paper to start with, she could have been on her way. That being said, I didn't want to get involved with a queue jumper and piss off all the other customers who were patiently waiting. On the plus side, all the other folks waiting to see me who witnessed a tirade were super nice to me afterwards. Not overly dramatic. I found it more funny than anything. 4. Just for some context, I worked in retail at the same store for about 15 years. I was part of the management team. When we had our highest-ranked manager leave to explore other opportunities, she was a young single mother, and retail management life doesn't afford you as much family time as you might think. Myself, as well as the rest of our team, had to run the store on our own while we waited for her replacement to be trained in another store, which afforded the rest of us even less family time. So by the time the new manager was able to start, me and the rest of our team were completely burnt out, which was not helped much by the fact that our new team member was a real Karen-type personality. She wouldn't do the work, but then would criticize our work for not being done the way she wanted done. As she was higher on the food chain, if she didn't like my work, I had to redo it. So one weekend on the new Queen's Reign of Terror, I'd had enough. I was done rebuilding the same displays 15 times in a shift. So I walked into the cash office, where I knew she would be sitting her fat ass down on the phone with her friend, for the 5th time in the 2 hours she's been there, handed in my resignation, effective immediately, handed in my keys and walked out. I never felt that free in my life. Fast forward to this past holiday season. I am out doing some heavy Christmas shopping for the fam. I run into a woman who I recognize as a regular customer who always came in when I was working there. Also a Karen type, she was always that one customer that no one ever wanted to check out, so I often ended up being the one to check her out back in the day because I was really good at gritting my teeth behind a big smile, some sarcasm, and a can-do attitude. She walks up to me on this day and says, "I see you're out of," some product that I didn't care to commit to memory, and asks if I will check the back, to which I reply, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." I'm clearly not in the company dress code, as I'm wearing a winter coat for starters, but also sweatpants, snow boots, and a winter hat. So I figured that will be the end. "Nope," she replied with, "You do work here. I know you're either just coming in or shopping on your day off or something, but it's your job to help customers in this store. Now help me." I seriously said, "Ma'am, I don't work here," to which she responds, "I know you do." I said, "Yes, I did work here, and I did work checkout before, 10 years ago. And I haven't worked here since 10 years ago." As I'm walking away to move to another aisle, I hear her just whining about how horrible of an employee I am, and she's going to see to it that I'm fired. I brush it off and keep shopping. About the time I was starting to forget about the interaction completely, I turn a corner and see Karen and Amy, my former subordinate, who is the new head manager, and a good friend of mine. Heading straight towards me, Karen's hands are flailing, still complaining that Amy has a horrible employee and she wants her fired now. Which, anything short of theft or threat to harm of employees and customers, the order to fire someone has come from corporate office. Amy doesn't have that power. When Amy sees who it is Karen is complaining about, she couldn't hold back and busts up laughing and says, "Ma'am, I can't fire her. She doesn't work here anymore. And even if she did, she would still be my boss." She then accuses Amy of lying to try and cover up her own ineptitude. She storms off, leaving a cart full of items behind. I took a few minutes to talk to Amy and even helped her put Karen's stuff back on the shelf. When Amy is called to the office, apparently one of their corporate bosses, Lisa, whom I also knew from my time working there, was in town for the 4th quarter meetings with the staff, and had seen Karen leaving in a huff in her way back from her lunch break, and stopped to see what was wrong and assured her she would get to the bottom of it. As I'm checking out, I can still hear Karen arguing with them that she knows I work here and she will have us all fired. They ended up having to pull out past employee files to show her my resignation letter, dated 10 years earlier, before she would finally go away. Last time I spoke to Amy, she said Karen hasn't been back since. Now, I know the end is a bit controversial and yes, unethical. But they told me right away, and to this day I find it hysterical. And watching them try to mimic her facial expression after was so worth it. I have never and will never feel like this was a violation of my privacy. And they only did it because they knew what my reaction would be. And they would never do it to anyone else, ever. 5. So for some context, I have severe anemia that requires I get infusions regularly. I pass out regularly from many activities from cooking to walking. Otherwise, I look like a normal, pale, healthy adult. Recently, I was shopping at one store with blue shirts that sells it all. I did happen to be wearing a blue shirt at the time, but it was A, more turquoise, less navy, and B, a cami top with spaghetti straps, because it was 100 degrees outside. My anemia is bad right now, but this was a necessary trip because kids have to eat. I am trying to take it slow. There were no scooters when I entered, which I hate taking, but it beats ending up on the floor, so I was trying to be extra careful. I came upon a younger woman with a small child. She was trying to reach up to grab something on a high shelf, and me being taller, I was easily able to grab the item. So I did so for her and continued on my way. About 3 aisles over, I felt the fishbowl coming on. My head starts to swim, and everything feels like I'm underwater. There was nowhere to sit besides floor, and it was sit or fall, so I dropped onto the floor cross-legged and put my head on my lap, waiting for the worst to pass. I hear someone clearing their throat nearby and kinda wave my hand their direction to signal I'm okay, waiting for the world to refocus. The throat-clearing sound happens again and again. I finally lift my head and see this petite lady with white hair staring at me. I croak out, I am fine, just give me a moment, but I was mistaken in thinking her intention was to check on my welfare.
It is extremely unprofessional to sit on the job. I need some help.
She was holding a cane and started smacking the ground with each word. I looked up at her, unsure if my head was still fuzzy or if she really just said what she said. At this point, some other customers and an employee had started to approach to check on me. I told her politely that I was shopping and not an employee, but she pointed her cane at me, cut me off mid-sentence, and told me she was sick of the younger generation always making excuses. My eyes rolled so far back in my head I'm surprised I didn't pass out. The actual employee leaned down and asked me if I needed medical assistance. I explained to him that I had a medical condition, that there had been no electric scooters, that I would manage, I just needed a moment. He got on a walkie and I heard him say something about the scooter, but the lady started again, so I missed what was being said exactly. She looked at him and demanded he get my boss, and she wanted to give him an earful about my behavior issues. At this point, I think she was the only oblivious person in the aisle, and we had an audience of like 10. 2 other people leaned down to ask if I wanted to get up or stay put, did I need water, etc. The employee tells the lady that a manager is on his way, but that I do not work here. She starts ranting again, something about people lying for each other. At this point, I'm embarrassed by the crowd and just ready to leave. Manager comes out and she starts ranting at this guy, tells him I was personal shopping for another customer, and when she approached me, I just sat down on the floor like an entitled spoiled brat. She then launches into a rant about how they had no electric scooters when she came in, and how personal shoppers would be a benefit to her. Now, I didn't have any glorious moment of telling her off, it isn't really my way. But I get to enjoy her face when an electric cart was driven up by an employee, and she got to see me ride off on it. The manager still explaining I had a medical condition as she began yelling about my youth and entitlement and being a bad employee. She probably still thinks I work there. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Adventures in Fast Food and Retail, episode 159. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then I'd appreciate it if you gave it a bit of a share on your social medias. Okay, this went up on a Monday originally, so... Okay, I think no special shoutouts today. No, I think we're good there. Okay, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. You ever have those days you just can't get going and you never really seem to get going at all? One of those days for me. I'd blame the weather, but it's not that hot. It's only mid-60s. That's about 19 for those of us who use centigrade. Sorry, that's not the question of the day. That's just me rambling. Okay, Hellfreezer's question of the day. Ice. Do you like it crushed, cubed, chipped with like an ice pick? Or do you like to use those kind of fancy ice cube molds where you can put things in different shapes? I've got one somewhere. I don't know what I did, but I've got one somewhere that makes ice in the shape of big balls. Don't laugh. Big ice balls. And then I've also got one that I got that makes kind of long ice rectangles, I guess, for going inside water bottles because the other cubes were too thick. But you can also get like skulls, there's TARDISes. I'm sure there is Star Trek ones actually. You can get Starfleet Deltas. You can also get very, very naughty ones. So, do you have a preference? And we'll make it a two-part question. Do you have any novelty ice cube trays that you really like? Okay. And with that, I'm going to go chill. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.